Welcome back to the Football Game Tonight podcast. I'm your host, John Kuzma. This is a recap of the Chiefs' 27-20 win over the Ravens. It's week one of the NFL, the regular season opener for this new season that we have. And I have to be honest with you guys, I am so excited that football is back. The Chiefs were able to win this game. Let's start with Patrick Mahomes. Obviously, everything when it comes to the Chiefs starts with Patrick Mahomes, and he did pretty good in this game. I thought he was poised in the pocket, threw the ball very well. And, with Patrick Mahomes, he's just such a good pocket passer quarterback. And that's what you need in the National Football League, a guy that can sit in the pocket and make all the throws. And, with the Chiefs looking to three-peat and win a third straight Super Bowl, we know that the Chiefs have become a dynasty because of what Patrick Mahomes brings to the table. He's so gifted, so talented, and just because he is a traditional pocket passer doesn't mean that he can't escape the pocket and throw on the run. He always does that too. So, more of a traditional pocket passer, but when necessary can get out of the pocket and escape the pursuit and make throws on the run. We've always seen him, be able to do that throughout his career. He did that tonight against the Chiefs against the Ravens in this game too. So I thought he did a good job in this game of making throws. The guy that he really seemed to connect with in this game was Rashee Rice. Rashee Rice played fast in this game. I know people are wondering why is this guy playing, because he had, the accident. He got in a car accident off the field. Some people got injured, and, after the season, he could be facing a suspension. But Rashee Rice looked fast in this game. There's no other way to describe it, because I'm looking at these Ravens wide receivers, and the Ravens don't have a lot of speed at the wide receiver position. And Rashee Rice was flying all over the football field. He looked fast. He got in and out of his breaks quickly. And remember when he had that big game in the playoffs this past year when the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, and, they went on that run in the playoffs again to go back-to-back. Rashee Rice had the big game in the playoffs. Well, he's picking up right where he left off. And he looks even more confident. Clearly, he's a crucial piece to the puzzle when we're talking about the Chiefs' future, because this guy can flat out play. And to see him out there moving at warp speed and, getting separation and getting behind the Ravens secondary, he showed a lot of promise in this game. And it's so clear that Rashee Rice has a very bright future in the National Football League. This guy is not a fluke. He can get the job done. And like I said, in the playoffs last year, when Rashee Rice had that big game, I said, if Travis Kelce ever has to pass the torch, the guy that he's most likely to pass the torch to is Rashee Rice. And we got even more evidence to support that claim in this game, because Rashee Rice was great. To me, he looked like the best wide receiver on the field in this game. Just in rhythm with Patrick Mahomes, making catches in traffic. Mahomes is putting the ball on him in stride. He's making the catch, turning, getting upfield, and just doing a great job of making himself available for Patrick Mahomes and this Chiefs offense. And it's easier said than done. It's a lot easier said than done. Every wide receiver in the National Football League thinks they can go out there and make plays. Well, the Ravens struggled to make plays at the wide receiver position, and Rashee Rice was getting the job done for the Chiefs in this football game. So I think you have to pat Rashee Rice on the back for what he was able to do in this game. I do think Travis Kelce will end up passing the torch to him eventually, and Rashee Rice will be the number one target for Patrick Mahomes in this Chiefs offense. Clearly, we're getting indications that that's the way things are heading for this Chiefs offense. And I'm not surprised by that at all, because when you have a guy that can get the job done, when you have a guy that can, walk the walk and talk the talk, so to say, then, that player is capable of delivering the goods. That's what Rashee Rice did in this game. Week 1, a big game against a team that is, becoming the Chiefs' rival. I know the Chiefs have, what are they, 5-1 against the Ravens, I heard. So the Chiefs have done a good job of winning this matchup when they had to go head-to-head with the Ravens, but it's always a tightly contested matchup. You go back to the AFC Championship game, you go to this game, week 1, you're kicking off a new season, you want to set the tone, you want to get a big win against an opponent who is kind of, challenging you on that AFC side of the bracket. And the challenge was denied because of players like Rashee Rice, who stepped up on the big stage and got the job done for the Chiefs in this win, an impressive win for the Chiefs. They were able to hold on. The Ravens started to surge in that second half towards the end of the game, really in the fourth quarter, but the Chiefs do hold off the Ravens. And, Rashee Rice, if you're picking three stars of this ball game, obviously, your quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, is going to be a star. Rashee Rice is going to be a star. And, I think you have to go Xavier Worthy in this game as well for the Chiefs. Speaking of Xavier Worthy, the game starts out with Xavier Worthy taking a reverse, catching the Ravens off guard with his speed, and he turns that reverse into a touchdown for the Chiefs. Now, as a coach, I used to be a head coach at the semi-pro and high school varsity levels. One thing a coach always tries to do, you always want to be the first coach in the game that runs a reverse. So Andy Reid knows what he has in Xavier Worthy. He's coaching this kid in practice every single day. He knows that Xavier Worthy has unique speed. He knows what he has in Xavier Worthy. And he knew that he had to be the first coach in this game to run a reverse, and he gets Xavier Worthy out on that, the true reverse. Xavier Worthy takes it, turns the corner, cuts upfield, gets into the end zone, and that's what you try to do as a coach. You try to get the ball in your playmakers' hands. Andy Reid did a great job of that early on in this game by getting Xavier Worthy the ball on that reverse. Xavier Worthy does the rest. I thought the Chiefs did a good job of having some blockers out in front of him. They surprised the Ravens on that play because, the flow initially goes towards that fake handoff that happens before the reverse to Xavier Worthy. So the flow goes in that direction. The defenders take a false step. And then what happens, Xavier Worthy comes around. It's almost like a hook in a boxing match. The fake on the run is like a jab. You are anticipating a jab, but what happens? It leaves you open on that hook. Xavier Worthy delivered that hook to the Ravens defense, and it was a haymaker because they scored a touchdown, and it really set the tone early on in this game for that Chiefs offense. And it energized them. Football is so much about energy and momentum. When you have a big play and you're not only, having this big play, you're also able to capitalize on that play with a touchdown. Man, it charges your teammates up. Everybody starts to feed off that energy because, it's contagious, and it's a positive contagious because everybody wants to get in on the action after something like that. So I thought Xavier Worthy did a great job of taking that reverse, turning on the Jets, and making sure that he got into the end zone for the Chiefs offense. That play takes a lot of pressure off Patrick Mahomes. It takes pressure off Isaiah Pacheco. It takes pressure off Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce, the rest of the guys that they have on this Chiefs offense. It takes pressure off of Andy Reid. That's what you need from your rookie player that's out to make a name for himself. He's trying to establish himself in the National Football League. And if we just look back at this first game, I would say Xavier Worthy went above and beyond the call of duty. He was phenomenal in this game, really stepped up, and it's looking like the Chiefs hit on this draft pick. Xavier Worthy is already making an impact for this team. So you look at the players that this team has added recently, Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, the Chiefs are in good hands. They have these young playmakers that are already contributing, and I could make a strong case that they're already carrying this team to some degree. It was a quiet night for Travis Kelce, and Travis Kelce's getting older. I don't know if he's, just laying up with Taylor Swift all the time. I think, Father Time is undefeated, and don't get me wrong, Travis Kelce's going to have a great season. He's going to still be the best tight end in the National Football League. But eventually, Travis Kelce is going to start to slow down because Father Time is undefeated. And it's nice to know if you're a Chiefs fan, you have either Rashee Rice or Xavier Worthy waiting in the wings. And I don't even know if waiting in the wings is the right way to phrase it because, like I said, they carried the team in this game. They were phenomenal. The young guys picked up the slack. And for Patrick Mahomes, who eventually at some point is going to keep playing after Travis Kelce is out of the picture, just because Travis Kelce is older. We know how good he is. But at some point, that will be the case. And you look at the Chiefs offense, Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, those are going to be the guys that the Chiefs count on when they turn the page on Travis Kelce. Other guys in this game, Isaiah Pacheco has the touchdown, was contained a little bit, but he did punch in the touchdown. And, obviously in a 27-20 game, all the points matter. So Isaiah Pacheco had a good night because anytime you're able to find pay dirt and punch one in for your team, I don't know if it's a bad night if you were able to punch one in for the team. Now, I would have liked to see Isaiah Pacheco maybe chop the Ravens defense up a little more than he did in this game. But, he found pay dirt, he got in the end zone, and, that was a very good thing, obviously, for the Chiefs. You got to be able to put points on the board in the National Football League. Isaiah Pacheco was able to do that in this game. And, I talked about, Xavier Worthy taking pressure off the other guys. Isaiah Pacheco was able to do that as well. That's what happens when you get in the end zone and you're able to put 6 points on the board for your team. So looking at the big picture for the Chiefs, they got the win, but I do think there was room for improvement. And I actually think that's a good thing for the Chiefs, because obviously you want to execute and you want to execute flawlessly and have a perfect game. But the Chiefs were able to win this game, and there's still room for improvement. They still can execute better. This was not their best game. And, I know there was some bright spots with Patrick Mahomes and Rashee Rice. I know there was some bright spots with Xavier Worthy. But eventually Travis Kelce is going to get it going, and that's going to add another dynamic to this Chiefs offense. I do think Patrick Mahomes can play better than he did in this game. I think when Patrick Mahomes puts together his A-plus game, this team will get better. So right there with improvements from Patrick Mahomes and, Travis Kelce was relatively quiet in this game. That's not going to be the case for much longer. I promise you that. When Travis Kelce turns it on, it's going to add a whole nother dynamic to this game. And, the Ravens are no slouch either. They were in the AFC Championship game last year. So against worse teams, this could have been a 40-point game. And even in this game, if Patrick Mahomes doesn't throw the interception to Roquan Smith, if, they are able to put together a few more good drives in this game, they could have won more convincingly in this game. And remember, it's about ironing out the wrinkles. The defenses are usually ahead of the offenses in the early stages of the season because it takes a lot of people being in sync for the offense to work. It takes a lot of people being in rhythm for the offense to work. So it takes rhythm and timing. It takes being in sync. And those things take a little bit longer than the defense. That's always the case when it comes to football, whether it's Pee-wee all the way up to the pros, whether it's high school, whether it's JUCO, D1, 2, or 3, the defenses are always ahead of the offense. It's just how the game of football works. And I think, there's a little bit of magic that goes into it on the offensive side of the ball, and it takes time. So when you have this Chiefs offense with Patrick Mahomes and Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, and Travis Kelce, 3 dynamic weapons for Patrick Mahomes to get the ball to, they're eventually going to get it figured out, and then that's when we'll see the Chiefs take a next step on the offensive side of the ball. And that's when we'll see them start to fulfill their potential even more. And we won't be having these conversations about how they have room for improvement. So that's the direction I anticipate things going for the Chiefs. But most importantly, you got the win. You got the win against a tough opponent and an opponent that is really licking their chops and trying to test you on that AFC side of the bracket. So I can't put enough emphasis on how important that is for the Chiefs, and they got it done. So a big win for the Chiefs. My hat's off to them. Let's switch to the other side of the coin, and let's talk about the Ravens. So the Ravens, surged at the end of the game in the fourth quarter. They actually, on the last play, Lamar Jackson, he was under pressure. He escapes the pressure. He throws it to Isaiah Likely in the back of the end zone. Isaiah Likely makes the catch. Initially, it's ruled a touchdown. The game's tied up. But after that, the replay showed that Isaiah Likely's toe was on the line. The touchdown gets waved off, and the game is over. I mean, the Ravens were this close to tying this game up at the end. If Isaiah Likely's toe is not on the line, we could be talking about a different game here. And there was an indication from the announcers or the commentators in the booth that the Ravens were going to go for 2 and try to win it on the 2-point conversion. I don't know how that would have went for the Ravens, but, when you have Lamar Jackson, a guy that is, I think arguably the most athletic quarterback in the National Football League, you might have a very good shot at making that 2-point conversion because not only do you have to defend the pass, you also have to defend Lamar Jackson tucking it and running it. And we all know that he seems to find creases and he's able to run to daylight like he did in this football game. Lamar Jackson was great at tucking it and running it in this football game. He looked like Louisville Lamar Jackson. I think maybe Lamar was looking back on that AFC Championship game and thinking to himself, I probably should have ran it a little bit more. I probably should have trusted my athleticism a little more. He clearly made that adjustment from that AFC Championship game to this Week 1 game, and I definitely think that helped the Ravens in this game. He was moving the chains, picking up big gains. He actually had a huge run that was brought back. I think the center for the Ravens got called on a holding call. That negated a nice run by Lamar Jackson, but he was taking off and he looked fast. And that's just another thing that the Chiefs had to compensate for, and it takes adjustments. You got to spy him, or you got to contain even better. It's just little things that the Chiefs had to do on the defensive side of the ball, and it makes them be even more disciplined. So when you make a defense, even more disciplined, you make it tough for them because they can't cheat on plays. They can't play freely. They have to stick to their assignment, and there's no freelancing at all. If you don't contain and set the edge, then Lamar Jackson's going to get to the outside and hit the sideline and break off a big gain. If you don't keep someone home and spy, Lamar Jackson's going to step up in the pocket and take off and move the chains. And he can beat you by doing those things. So that's what Steve Spagnuolo had to deal with in this game. The Chiefs had their hands full. And, I know a lot of people are, giving Lamar Jackson flack right now. They're blaming him for the ending of this game. But I could make a case that Lamar Jackson was better than Patrick Mahomes in this game. I think Lamar Jackson actually outplayed Patrick Mahomes in this game. Now, the Ravens didn't get the win, but Lamar Jackson had a better night than Patrick Mahomes did. And let's not forget, football is a team game. It's a team game. So many people want to criticize Lamar, but Lamar did his job tonight. People are just talking about the end of that game. What about the big run that got negated? What about, the fact that the wide receivers don't have much speed at all? The Ravens wide receivers are seriously lacking in speed. They don't have enough speed. Now, don't get me wrong. Zay Flowers is fast. There's no doubt about that. But outside of Zay Flowers, they don't have enough speed at the wide receiver position. They have Isaiah Likely. Mark Andrews was very quiet in this game tonight. Zay Flowers can play. Rashad Bateman was all right, had one nice catch, later on down the sideline, down the right sideline that Lamar Jackson hit him on. But it wasn't a huge night for Rashad Bateman by any means. The guy that really stole the show for the Ravens was Isaiah Likely, and the Ravens need more outside of Isaiah Likely. Zay Flowers is shifty, but they're throwing all these bubble screens to him. And, they just need more guys that can make plays down the field vertically. Remember, Odell Beckham Jr. is not there anymore. And I know Odell Beckham Jr. is getting old and he's not the same Odell Beckham that he used to be, but he's another guy that could make some plays here or there. You can't tell me this team is better without him. That's not the case. I don't care if his numbers didn't jump off the charts at you. At least they had someone that was reliable. And they don't have Odell there anymore. And don't get me wrong, Odell Beckham Jr. was overpaid by the Ravens, and he didn't live up to that contract at all. But he's reliable, and he's someone that can at least make a play or give you some plays in the passing game. And without him, the Ravens wide receiver room is worse. Now, is it worth bringing Odell Beckham Jr. back? We know he's on the Dolphins now. No, it wasn't worth bringing him back for a huge paycheck. Not at all. Not at all. But you got to get somebody in there that can create separation and catch the football and give you something. And, can bring something to the table. And right now, Zay Flowers, not a huge game for him. A lot of bubble screens and a lot of spot passes. And in the NFL, when you're going against a team like the Chiefs, who are back-to-back Super Bowl champions, bubble screens and, spot passes can only get you so far. I mean, that Steve Spagnuolo defense, they flow to the football and they gang tackle. So after 3, maybe 4 bubble screens or spot passes, that's pretty much tapped out. And that's what we saw in this game. So, yeah, I don't know what the Ravens can do at wide receiver to get better. I think, they need somebody. They need somebody, whether it's through a trade or if they can find somebody that is out there that's still a free agent. They got to do something. But most importantly, they need more speed at the wide receiver position. They need some quickness, and they need some guys that can get free and, just make themselves available for Lamar Jackson, because right now it's just Isaiah Likely, and that's not going to get it done. Now, I like the other pieces that the Ravens have. I love Lamar Jackson. I love the addition of Derrick Henry. Isaiah Likely, good. Zay Flowers, he's going to have better nights than he did tonight. But still, that wide receiver room is weak. And here's the thing. Everybody was talking about how bad the Ravens' offensive line is. I think the wide receiver room is a bigger problem than the offensive line. The offensive line, over time, will start to gel. And Lamar Jackson had to, get flushed out of the pocket because, there was pressure coming from Chris Jones. Or he had to step up in the pocket because somebody was flying off the edge. But the reality is, that offensive line can give you something and give Lamar a little bit of time. And because Lamar is so athletic, he can create something out of nothing when there's a pass rush. But these wide receivers, the fact that they don't have any speed, it's hard to win when you have a bunch of slow wide receivers in the National Football League. Those secondaries and those defensive backs, they're staying right on your hip. And when you're slow, it makes it easy for the secondary. And right now, the Ravens just don't have the speed at the wide receiver position. So they got to do something. They got to find somebody that can come in and be a playmaker at the wide receiver position, because this team is not that far away. You look at this game, 27-20. You look at the AFC Championship game, very close game. It's within reach for the Ravens, but you have to have some speed at the wide receiver position. And football, speed kills. And if we're calling it like we see it, the Ravens are slow at the wide receiver position. And to me, that's a worse problem than having an offensive line that has to figure things out a little bit. I think they can live with this offensive line. I think if they don't get help at the wide receiver position, that could ultimately doom this team in the playoffs when they have a real shot at getting over that hump and winning the Super Bowl. Isaiah Likely. Isaiah Likely was a star in this game. And, Mark Andrews gets injured a year ago, and Isaiah Likely takes over and gets all these reps. And wow, look at what Isaiah Likely has become. This guy is becoming a bona fide star at the tight end position for the Ravens. He can play. And he's more than capable of having big-time success in the National Football League. And, for a guy that was behind Mark Andrews, and we're all thinking about Mark Andrews and what he's been able to achieve throughout his career, Isaiah Likely has been a pleasant surprise for this Ravens offense. Mark Andrews didn't have a good night tonight. He didn't have a good night, and he didn't look like the Mark Andrews that we're used to seeing in these games. But Isaiah Likely stepped up, and he did what he needed to do to give him and Lamar Jackson and the Ravens as a team a chance to win this football game. On one play, Lamar Jackson's under pressure. He gets flushed out to the right side of the field. There's like 3 defenders closing in on him. He throws it up to Isaiah Likely. Isaiah Likely catches it, jukes the defender out of his shoes. I think it was Bolton that he juked, takes off down the right sideline, and then right before the end zone, jukes another defender and gets in the end zone. I mean, a play that should have been a tackle right after the catch. He makes the catch, and then he busts out this amazing juke move to the point where you're like, wow, this guy's a lot more fluid than you realize. I mean, he's a big framed guy, and to be able to bust that juke move out and make the defender miss, I'm pretty sure it was Nick Bolton for the Chiefs defense, but he olayed him. Like a bullfighter making the bull miss, holding the red sheet up and Olay in the bowl. That's what Isaiah Likely was able to do to that Chiefs defender. The Chiefs defender closed in. He thought he was making a tackle. A nice sidestep juke by Isaiah Likely. Takes off down the right sideline. Another defender right near the goal line has a shot at him. Now he jukes back to the inside, makes that defender miss, gets into the end zone for the Ravens. Just a big-time play by Isaiah Likely. And in a clutch moment when it matters the most, when your playmakers have to step up and bring something to the table for your team, Isaiah Likely said, guess what? The stage is not too big for me. I can handle these moments. I'm cut out for these moments. And it's to the point where I'm looking and I'm seeing Mark Andrews on the sidelines more and more. And, I would love to see Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely on the field at the same time. But it's like, how do you take Isaiah Likely off the field when this guy's playing at this level? You can't. Now, to be honest, I would like to see the Ravens spread the field more. I think they need to spread things out more. Even now that, Todd Monken has taken over at the offensive coordinator position. And remember, before Todd Monken was there, they were really tight. They were really tight with Greg Roman to the point where it was constricting this offense too much, and they just weren't getting the big plays that they need because everything was so tight. And Todd Monken took over, and, he comes from Georgia and has a really good history of being an offensive coordinator. And I still think sometimes they're playing the game a little too tight. I would like to see more 4 wide receiver sets and more spread, and, just throw Isaiah Likely at one of the wide receiver spots. Just throw Mark Andrews at a receiver spot. Obviously, you're going to have to probably rotate those guys and go with 3 other receivers and 1 tight end. But when you spread that field, it's amazing because you have Lamar Jackson who's going to find the running lanes. But when you're tight and you're constricted, there's not a lot of daylight there. And you're not really helping Lamar Jackson by, congesting everything up so much. You want to spread the field and have those running lanes because Lamar Jackson will find them and break off big gains. It's like Barry Sanders. Barry Sanders' dad one time was furious that the Lions were running too many tight formations because he's like, my son's Barry Sanders. Spread the field. If you spread the field, Barry Sanders is going to run to daylight. It's the same thing with Lamar Jackson. Spread the field, let Lamar Jackson run to daylight, and he's going to tilt the odds in the Ravens' favor because that's what he does. So I think the Ravens and Todd Monken definitely have to focus on spreading the field, open those running lanes up, go 3 wide receivers and 1 tight end, just rotate Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews in at one of those receiver spots. That's how they should be playing these games. But Isaiah Likely, right before the final play, goes up and tries to make this catch. It was a little high pass, comes down hard in the end zone, smashes his shoulder. And he was down for a long time in the back corner, just behind the end zone. And you knew right away if you watched that he was probably hurt because he got so high that he fell from a very high height. And Isaiah Likely is not a small guy. He's a big guy. And when you're a big guy like that and you take a fall from that high, that's a lot of weight crashing down to the earth. So right away, I was like, he's probably banged up a little bit. And sure enough, he stayed down. He's holding his shoulder. He's banged up. But this is why I have to respect Isaiah Likely. He's walking off on the sidelines, and he's looking at the game going on. And you can just tell by his face, he's thinking to himself, I need to get back out there. And the very next play, I think he missed one play. The very next play, he went back into that game. To me, the toughness, the guts that he showed by saying, I don't care about the pain right now. My shoulder is messed up, but I need to be in this game because I can impact this game and change the outcome of this game for my team. Now, it didn't go his way in this situation, but the fact that he was like, screw it, I'm playing through the pain, how can you not respect that? I mean, the guy falls, tries to high point the football, falls down, smashes his shoulder. He's down for a long period of time. He's walking on the sideline. You can see his face. I need to be in the game. Checks himself back in the game. He wasn't out for a long time at all. He checked right back into that game. He was not going to sit on the sidelines and miss that play. He knew he was too valuable for his team. You have to respect that about Isaiah Likely. And to me, that's a gutsy performance by Isaiah Likely. And he comes back in the game, high points the football, makes the catch. We thought the game was tied up. Unfortunately, his toe was on the line. The touchdown did get waved off. But I have to applaud Isaiah Likely for everything he did in this game. The star power to make the plays that he made. The elusiveness after the catch, to be able to shake a couple defenders and get in the end zone and finish the play in the end zone. And then the guts and the toughness to play through pain when it mattered and to check back in the game for the final play, even though he was in excruciating pain. Look, there's something there. Isaiah Likely has a chance to be a great player in this game, and he's already starting to arrive. He's becoming a great player right in front of our eyes. So I can't say enough good things about Isaiah Likely in this game. He was tremendous. The other thing I would recommend to the Ravens is get Derrick Henry going. Derrick Henry, I think, had 13 touches in this game, so not enough handoffs in this game. You got to feed Derrick Henry, and you got to feed him early on in this game. And the reason why is if you feed Derrick Henry early on in this game and you just say, you know what, we're going to sacrifice the passing game a little bit, and we're going to sacrifice some of these series just to get Derrick Henry going. And even if he doesn't start ripping right away, what you're doing is you're challenging the Chiefs physically. You're going head to head with him with your offensive linemen. You know, those offensive linemen, you know, they love to get after it by run blocking. They like to take the fight to the defensive line. They don't want to be playing backwards in pass protection. They want to go eat somebody's lunch. So when you run the ball and commit to the run early on to set the tone early on in the game, what you're doing is you're allowing your offensive linemen to deliver a punch to the defense. And you're making the defense respond to your physicality. And what that does is it tires out the defense early on in that game. So in that second half, they're winded. Because if you saw in that game, the Chiefs defense was winded in the second half. They were winded in that second half. Can you imagine how winded they would have been if they would have got a heavy dose of Derrick Henry? You know, like if they were feeding Derrick Henry and just running it down their throat every single snap in that first half and just committing to the run to the point where Derrick Henry has 25, 30 carries, a full workload instead of the small workload that he got, we might be talking about a whole different game here. Even if he's getting short gains early in the game and it doesn't feel like he's getting big chunks of yardage, if you stick with it and you feed him, holes are going to start to open up. Because what's going to happen is that defense is going to get challenged. And when they get challenged, you might be surprised if they cave or not. You might be surprised, especially when you go after them. You let your offensive linemen, start. The offensive linemen basically play downhill when you're running the ball. And they're just hammering that defense backwards, backwards. What happens? Well, suddenly now the pass rush isn't as aggressive because they've been getting their ass kicked by the offensive line on these running plays. Suddenly Lamar Jackson doesn't have to run it as much. He's a little bit more fresh. Now your play action is more opened up. And you have Derrick Henry. You signed him. Feed the man. Especially in these big matchups. That's the formula to winning. You let Derrick Henry get a full plate. You let him eat. You feed the guy and you let him just chip away at this Chiefs defense. That's how you take Steve Spagnuolo and his expertise out of the game. You take it out of the coach's hands and you put it in the players' hands, your players' hands, and more specifically, Derrick Henry's hands. Derrick Henry and that offensive line. Now, Steve Spagnuolo's X and O's and his execution and his schemes don't work as well because the defense is tired, because the defense is playing on their heels, because they have offensive linemen coming at them on every snap and Derrick Henry coming behind those offensive linemen. Suddenly, schemes and twists and loops and all these things, all these exotic blitzes that Steve Spagnuolo wants to run, suddenly they're not as effective anymore because you're taking it out of Steve Spagnuolo's hands. When they're fresh and they don't have to commit to stopping the run, they only have to commit to a small workload from Derrick Henry, you're letting them play freely. You're letting them run these loops and twists and exotic blitzes and these crazy coverages, and you're letting Steve Spagnuolo get into his bag of tricks, and you're letting the game be played on his terms. When you feed Derrick Henry, you tilt the odds into the Ravens, terms. You're playing on your own terms, and now the defense has to react. When you let Steve Spagnuolo play his game, now you're reacting to him a little bit. Don't do that if you're the Ravens. Put it in Derrick Henry's hands. Give that Chiefs defense a full dose, and now suddenly they can't be as creative on the defensive side of the ball. They just have to find a way to stop Derrick Henry. They just have to find a way to stop getting punched in the mouth. And so many times when a defense gets punched in the mouth over and over and over, you'll be surprised how many times they cave. It's football 101. It's why high school teams don't even pass the ball. You don't see quarterbacks in high school throwing for 300 yards a game. They throw for maybe 100 yards if they're lucky. A great game would be 200 yards. You're not seeing 300-yard games from high school quarterbacks. They're pounding the rock, and they're keeping the game under their control. Sometimes in the NFL, teams get so caught up in playing the NFL-style play. Don't be afraid to take risks. Don't be afraid to be a little unconventional at times. By pounding the rock over and over and over and just saying, hey, we might have to punt it sometimes early on in this game, but we're going to establish the run and we're going to ground and pound this team until they're fatigued, until they're tired, until the odds are tilted in our favor. They could have done that, and they could have done a better job of that in this game. And I just don't think this small workload for Derrick Henry played to the Ravens' favor at all. I think it helped the Chiefs. So that's one adjustment I would make if I was John Harbaugh and Todd Monken in this game. When you play the Chiefs, you got to feed the king. You got to let the king carry you, and then you allow the second half to be Lamar Jackson's time. And watch how much bigger those holes are going to be, because that defense got worked in that first half because you went with this heavy dose of Derrick Henry. That's all I'm saying. That's the adjustment I would make for the Ravens. This has been the recap of the 27-20 Chiefs victory over the Ravens in the regular season opener. Big win for the Chiefs. That's all I got, though. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'm John Kuzma. Check out the Football Game Tonight podcast wherever podcasts are found. You can also be a member by signing up by clicking the link in the episode description box. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'm signing off.